Okay, so growing up, I always knew I was Indigenous, but I didn't know what that truly meant. My journey of reconnection has been shaped by moments of pain, discovery, pride, and community. In this reflection, I want to share how I found my way back to culture and how the work I do today helps others do the same. My name is Amanda Bernard, and I am a proud member of the Madawaska Malsi First Nation, and I currently serve as the Director of Indigenous Programs at Laidlaw Foundation. My father grew up on the reserve in Edmundston, New Brunswick, alongside his six siblings. The Malsi people, also known as the Wistawayak, have lived along the St. John River since time immemorial. His childhood home sat right beside the river, a constant presence in his daily life. In 1725, the Malsi Nation and the British Crown signed a treaty of peace and friendship, which was an agreement that continues to affirm our rights and relationships to the land. The Bernard family is rooted in leadership, culture, and resilience. My grandmother Margaret and my aunts Joanna and Trish have all served as chiefs in our community. My grandmother even ran a craft shop traveling across the country to sell her handmade items, a legacy that was carried on by my Uncle Bob. I feel incredibly fortunate to come from a family that preserved records of our history. My great uncle Noel Bernard was documented by a settler Christian who spent time with him. Through these records, we were able to even trace our original family name, which was Shawish. When settlers arrived, my ancestors were forced to change it, and they chose Bernard after the name of their favorite priest. My dad eventually moved from the reserve to Ottawa to get better employment opportunities, and in Ottawa, he had myself and my three siblings. Growing up, I always knew I was Indigenous, but I didn't fully understand what that meant until much later in my life. My father, like many Indigenous people of his generation, experienced bullying and racism, so he often kept his identity private. As a result, our culture was rarely talked about at home. We lived in Ottawa and only visited the reserve about once a year to see my grandparents and my cousins. I remember receiving an eagle feather from my grandmother after reading a novel about Indigenous medicine man and taking a quiz. She tried her best to pass on teachings about plant medicines such as sweetgrass in our traditions. Yeah. Despite these efforts, I often felt disconnected. I remember being in elementary school, and when teachers found out that I was Indigenous, they would ask me to do a presentation, and they would ask me to bring in my moccasins and an eagle feather and the medicine that I had. At such a young age, I didn't understand the significance of what I was sharing. 15 or 20 years ago, it wasn't seen as cool to be Indigenous. I rarely talked about it. I even recall someone asking me, why would you tell people you're Native? The lack of pride led to a lack of understanding and a lot of intergenerational pain. My grandfather and my great grandfather both attended day schools where they were segregated from young white children. My grandfather never spoke about his experience, not even up until his death. That silence carried deep pain, and while I'll never fully understand what he endured, I can see how that trauma passed down to my aunts, my uncles, my father, and eventually to me. Those who attend day schools or residential schools often emerge as shells of who they once were. Many struggle to love themselves and others, unsure how to express the kind of love that they never received. That pain ripples through families. As the saying goes, hurt people hurt people. After university, I worked for a company building a healthcare adjudication system for Indigenous communities, but I still felt disconnected. I was often the only Indigenous person in the room. When my aunt passed away on the reserve from something that could have been prevented, it was a wake-up call. I knew I needed to be closer to community, and that's when I joined Laidlaw Foundation. It was through my work at Laidlaw, and especially with Indigenous youth, that I began to reconnect. The Indigenous Youth and Communities Future Fund invests in youth-led projects that celebrate and reclaim culture, language, land, and community. I supported projects that include in community gardens, dog sledding, medicine walks, ebooks, regalia making, language revitalization, and land-based healing. These projects aren't just programming, they're lifelines. to restoring pride, fostering healing, and creating generational change. I've learned so much from the teachings of plants and the sacredness of regalias to the beauty of each nation's art and worldview. This work has helped me understand my family's pain and begin my own journey of healing. I've seen that same transformation in the youth that we support. They are proud of who they are and where they come from, and that pride shapes a powerful vision for where they're going. In 2025, I danced in a powwow wearing a jingle dress, a dream that I carried for many years, but never felt brave enough to pursue until now. Indigenous communities are healing, but this work is far from over. We must continue to uplift Indigenous voices, protect cultural knowledge, and honor Indigenous ways of being and knowing. Indigenous traditions are rooted in respect for one another, for the land, and for future generations. It's a beautiful and powerful culture, one that everybody deserves the opportunity to know, learn from, and walk alongside. Thank you.